Yeah, well, when we talk about broadband or mobile broadband, we always say Ericsson is always working with some specific researches and reports where we see that the mobile data is of course booming, and one of the applications that has a very heavy participation on this data booming is exactly video. So when we talk about video, we are talking about delivering the video content, but also in a mobile environment. So what means that is that the LTE or the 4G and then the 5G networks and so on, they need to be able to really handle the mobility and the application coverage for video content, right? Which means that we have to work with specific requirements of the application, of latency, of, for example, capacity of these LTE networks, going from macro cells to small cells, talking about indoor coverage and how to perform well in an indoor environment when you talk about playing a video content and so on. So when you look at the LTE perspective as the mobility for the video delivery, there is a very important aspect which is the backbone or the backhaul of this network. And fiber network in this sense play a very important complement to the technology, because I mean we have a lot of techniques in the LTE to make it really advanced and to really perform and to really deliver in the right quality with the right quality of experience, but we need to rely on a very good backbone and backhaul solution that can really support this video delivery. And that's where fiber solutions play a very important role. Today in the LTE, as a backhaul, for example, of this big LTE network, but also as long as the LTE is going to evolve, the architecture is going to evolve from a distributed LTE to a concentrated and coordinated LTE, the fiber is more and more important to really make sure that we have the right throughput and the right backbone to deliver these services in the mobile environment. Yes, actually, one of the things that we have been discussing in FutureCon is exactly how to build this infrastructure, or how to evolve it, to expand this infrastructure. And for example, when we're talking about going to small cells and very high density environments to deliver video and to deliver this kind of applications, we are talking about expanding the backbone, we are talking about expanding the number of antennas, we are talking about putting the radio frequency closer to the antennas, and maybe leave the how can we say, the control part of the radio environment more centralized and coordinated in the central office, right? So in this sense, the more the air interface evolves to really deliver this content, the more is important to also have the expansions of the antennas, of the backbone of the LTE, because what you see is that with the LTE we can have the capillarity, right? But we really need to build the correct infrastructure to really reach some of the places where this application will have a very high usage, right? And it will play a very important aspect in terms of capacity and in terms of number of subscribers to be attended, right? So it's not only about growing in the LTE or in the air interface, right? That we really grow or evolve the techniques to avoid, for example, interference, or to aggregate how can I say, aggregate carriers to get more capacity, but also how much this backbone needs to evolve together and to be expanded together. Yeah, what we see is that the Wi-Fi can be seen also as a complementary solution, right? So, for example, LTE is where we can really build the wireless network and architecture. But in many aspects, for example, where we have fixed broadband, you can have a Wi-Fi as a complement, right? So you reach with the fixed broadband, and then you have the Wi-Fi to really complement the coverage inside a residential, for example. Right? So of course that the aspects of how we are going to control and orchestrate and manage these different networks and how to hand over to different air interface techniques needs to get to be very well controlled. And you need to have this in mind when you are planning your network, when you are planning about how the services will be delivered and what will be the experience that the customers will have when reaching this kind of environment. I would say that if you look in the past, I mean, you had a very separate network, right? So this is for fixed network, this is for mobile networks. We are converging more and more and more, and this convergence is going to happen also in the operator perspective, right? So before, they had to build specific platforms to reach specific services in both the fixed and the mobile. Now we are talking about having a transparency between what is fixed and what is broadband, right? Or what is wireless and what is fixed. I mean, for the user interface, and it's always important to take that the user is the perspective that we need to see. The subscriber is not really paying attention to which is the kind of coverage that he has, if this is fixed or mobile. He wants to have that transparency, and he wants to have the complementary services. So of course, I would not say if the consolidation of the operators, but the consolidation of the networks as such. More and more, the infrastructure that was built very much separate will start to converge and to really make sure, and the aspects of how to converge and how to make this transparency will be even more and more important to the operator, to really make sure that they can have a good quality of services regardless of what is the access that the subscriber is having, right? So it's not the consolidation in the operator's perspective, but it's really the consolidation in the network's perspective, and how you build it, how you plan it, how you evolve it, right, to really reach the subscribers at the right time and the right way, and with the best way or technology that will give him the right experience. Yeah, we talked a lot about LTE and the subscribers reaching the content and so on, but this is one aspect, right? When you look about the network at society, we are not talking about person-to-person connectivity. We're talking about machine-to-machine, machine-to-networks, and so on. So of course that this has a very big impact, because I mean the connectivity is going beyond person-to-person. And then the way that you build the networks and the way that the networks will evolve, the connectivity that you are able to deliver in the technology perspective needs also to be considering the whole business model, right? So the operator needs also to think about how they are going to plan for their machine-to-machine applications, and how much this network, this same network, will behave when you are attending a subscriber, when you are attending a machine-to-machine application, and so on. So of course that this plays a very important role. And we look into the LTE and into the convergence of the applications, or into the convergence of the networks in this perspective, about how you can really choose the best way to reach the subscriber, or the best way to reach that specific applications, and where in the network you're going to fit the technology better, right? Is it fixed? Is it mobile? Is it how to work with this different how can I say, the different end perspective. One of the things that we discussed in FutureCom, specifically in this panel that we were talking about LTE and fiber, is that one of the big challenges that we have, for example, when we talk about infrastructure, is really how to make sure that the agenda of the different operators are are connected in a way that they can really build something that can be that can be shared, right? So, for example, I would say that the government and how the government and the specific entities in a country can really support is something key, because, for example, they can be the ones that will really put together the different agendas of the operators and really say, okay, so how do we fit to each agenda of operators, helping to build this network in a way that they can use this network, that we can reach our objectives, which is to give connectivity, which is to give backbone and give infrastructure, and they will be able to also address their objectives as operators, as companies, right? So I would say that the government, the legislation, the simplicity, right, the regulation will be very important in this scenario, because we are coming from the aspects of regulation from the fixed, from voice and so on, coming to data, to video. So it's a lot of different aspects that you have to consider, and the governments and the regulations need to really evolve together with the technology, right, to make sure that we can deliver it right. Yeah, what we see, for example, if you take the mobility report that Ericsson has launched some time ago, in Latin America specifically, there was a very specific research that was done in Brazil, Mexico, and Chile, where we see that almost 90% of the users that access internet, they use mobile to do it. And from this and more, they use mobile, and they use video content in a mobile environment, right? So this thing about video and about data throughput is something that is happening also in Latin America. And from this almost 90%, 50% of them do it outside their households, which means that we are talking about really video on the go. They are really reaching video through a mobile network somewhere, right? So for me, this is a trend also in Latin America. These numbers already show that we are going into the same direction. So of course that the LTE is something that was key for that, because it's a technology that can really support the video application coverage, and we have the deployments of LTE. But more and more, and we could see here in FutureCon, most of the big operators, for example in Brazil, they are announcing that they will really keep investing in the LTE. They will really keep investing on having more coverage, on guarantee how to really build this LTE infrastructure that we are starting now. And we are predicting that until 2020, in Latin America, we are going to have around 250 million LTE subscribers, which is more than 30% of the whole subscriptions in the region. My name is Andrea Faustino. I am the head of engagement practice IP and transport in Ericsson Latin America.